A very good morning to everyone who's joined us in the UK, and a very good afternoon to all of you in India. Um, Today, I'm extremely happy to kind of host the webinar on transition in the UK energy sectors. So, obviously, all of us know that this is a very current and important topics in terms of discussions, whether it is at the political level, whether it is at the business level, whether it is um, especially in the UK-India corridor. So with regard to India, as in with its fast-growing low-carbon infrastructure and its plans with regard to energy transition, India is emerging as a major global player working towards reduction in climate change impacts. The Indian government is very keen to further this agenda, but would, as we all know, need international support on various aspects, including access to good practices in enabling policy and regulation, technology collaboration, innovative ways of financing, and others. These can be key opportunities for the UK-India engagement in this area, whether it is in the government-to-government space, business-to-government, as well as in the business-to-business areas. Today, in this webinar, we have a very impressive lineup of speakers. We'll hear initially from Deloitte about the key areas of opportunities that India offers. Then we have Clarke Energy, a UK company on the waste to energy side of things, who will share their experience in operating in India for almost 2 decades. And then we'll hear from the British High Commission about their ongoing engagement in the energy and clean growth area. So without taking up much more time, can I invite the speakers from Deloitte India? We have 2 speakers from Deloitte today. We have Debasish Mishra, who leads on their energy, resources, and industrial products for Deloitte Tomatsu in India. He's a partner in the consulting function of Deloitte with more than 2 decades of experience in the energy sector. And in not only in India, but in other developed and developing countries. Debasish has been advising governments, sector regulators, energy companies, investors, and multilateral agencies in a number of issues in this area in India. He's joined by Jimit Devani, who is also a partner with Deloitte India in the tax practice, and he handles direct taxes and international taxation. So he's the Deloitte tax sector lead for the power and utility sector. So can I hand over to you, Debasish and Jimit, to take us through your presentation, please? Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Prasenjit. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen in UK, and good afternoon for attendees joining from India. And quite my honor and privilege to be here today with such a large gathering of participants who are interested to understand what are the opportunities in India in the new energy, renewable energy segment. Next slide, please. Yeah. You know, as we all know that, you know, India has been, you know, depending a lot on coal for its electricity needs. In fact, today also we have 75% of our power sourced from coal-based thermal generation. But we are one of the first countries to commit to the Paris Declaration, and we have a target to reduce emissions, emission intensity in the GDP by 35% by 2030 from the 2005 levels. And that the country is going to achieve through a series of measures as we have committed to the global community. And one of them is basically 40% of our cumulative installed capacity will come from non-fossil fuel by 2030. And we are basically well on track to achieve it, as I'll detail it out in the future slides. Another one is on adoption of electric vehicle. We have committed to have at least 30% electric vehicle in the private ownership segment, almost 70% in the public vehicles, and 80% in two-wheeler and three-wheeler segment, which itself is a very large segment of transportation in India. We also have a very aggressive program on energy efficiency. It's called Perform, Achieve, Trade for industrial efficiency. We have also, almost 50% of the Indian lights in last 5-6 years, a staggering almost 350 to 360 million bulbs were distributed, LED bulbs, and that had a huge impact on our load profile. And also we have seen tractions around clean and alternate sources of energy, both for residential use, transportation use, and industrial use. So currently, as you can see on the graph, we have come a long way. When this government, Prime Minister Modi's government, came to power, 14% of our installed capacity was RE capacity, renewable energy capacity. Currently, we are tracking 24%. And to put it in context, we had around 30 gigawatt of renewable energy, and today we have around 95 gigawatt in last 6 years, so which is almost triple in last 6 years. And we are on track to achieve that 40% capacity by 2030. Next slide, please, Emma. So as I was, leveraging on the fact that, India is well on track to achieve the 40% capacity from non-fossil fuel sources cumulatively by 2030. That means also that we have set ourselves a staggering target of 450 gigawatt of renewable energy capacity by 2030. And that from current, you can say that 100 gigawatt to 450 gigawatt, you can imagine the amount of investment and business opportunity that provides. And also what happens is that electricity is a concurrent subject. We are a country with a federal setup and states are there. So we have state-wide, we have a national law on electricity, but states form their own regulation. But everybody, all the states are aligned towards this goal. So everybody had a renewable purchase obligation. But of late, what has happened is to the advantage of everybody, since the solar PV prices have crashed, and we in latest bids we are getting prices which are kind of 2 rupees per unit. And similarly, wind tariffs have also come down. So utilities are not reluctant to buy renewable energy anymore. At a time when it was at a premium, there was mandated in law to buy a certain percentage, but now it makes economic sense to do that. And but what is happening is, because of the intermittence nature of renewable energy, the policymakers and the states who are managing the electricity grid, they're trying to make it more and more dispatchable renewable. So with battery storage, with pump hydro, so and combining hybrid solar with wind. So there's a lot of development that is happening in this space, and there are a lot of investment opportunities that are coming up. Because what we are not looking at anymore is a plain vanilla wind or solar bids. So there are a lot of ancillary opportunities to participate in the investment in this segment. Next slide, please. So finally, who all are investing in India? So this is, the segment is full of private sector participation. The renewable energy segment is full of private sector participation. In fact, the early investors were mostly private equity funds, but increasingly the sector is going through consolidation. More and more long-term risk capital is coming in, with a lot of this existing platform getting bought over by pension funds and sovereigns who have ability to stay for a longer period of time. Also on the right side, if you may see, you can see that all the transactions which are shaded in green, most of them are from Europe, and some of them are particularly from UK. To name a few, I personally worked with funds such as Actis, CDC. Also, funds like Eversource is also active in India. The latest trend is also that a lot of these global super majors, they have shown tremendous interest because there is pressure on them also to go through this energy transition and have a bigger portfolio of renewable energy. So recently you would have seen Total investing in Adani, Green, and Royal Dutch Shell already has invested and they are expanding on their footprint. So it's an exciting space. I am happy to take any questions whenever the format allows. So over to you, Jimit. That's all from my side. Yeah.
Thank you, Debasish. Emma, if you move to the next slide. So what I've done is, for the purpose of a discussion and for the purpose of, to keep it brief, I've divided my slides into basically two parts. One is that today, if a UK investor is investing or it wants to invest into India, or is entering the Indian market, what all factors it needs to take into account while investing. And the second part would be that, okay, once you have invested in India, what are the key operational issues it needs to take care? And if it wants to repatriate the money back or exit into India, how do they take care of it? So that's what I've divided into it. Coming to the first part, which is your key points which you need to take into account when you're investing. Typically in India, when you're investing, the first and the foremost thing which you need to do is that, okay, which form of entity should you form in India? Because in India there is company, there is something called as limited liability partnership, various other forms which are there. Which form generally you would want to use to incorporate the company? You set up the business presence. Generally, majority of the people do form company, but there it depends on various purpose, whether they want to do a strategic investment, whether they are just an EPC contractor. What's the purpose? Depending on that, the entity is chosen. There are various tax and legal considerations which go into while deciding the form of entity. After that, of course, the another option which you would have typically seen in India is that if it's a UK company, typically you may want to invest into India directly from UK. But some of them, a UK company may have subsidiaries at various other places as well. And apart from UK, so they also say that, okay, no, what if my subsidiary in, say, Netherlands wants to invest into India, whether that is more beneficial if I invest through Netherlands rather than a UK company, because for whatever reason Netherlands is an holdco for renewable energy. So then what's the impact of that? Recently there is something called as base erosion and profit shifting guidelines issued by OECD. How does it impact that structure? And also that, okay, once you have decided the form of entity and the place from where you want to invest, you also have to think is that how do you fund your entities? In India, there are various funding mechanisms, whether you want to do investment by way of equity, whether you want to invest by way of debt. If yes, then whether it is plain debt, whether it is hybrid instrument, whether it is convertibles. In India, apart from the tax regulations, there are also various exchange control regulations. That is, inflow and outflow of money is governed by these regulations. And that also needs to be taken into account when you are funding your entity. And it's a very important aspect. And one very important thing to note, your funding will determine your repatriation mechanism. So it's a very critical exercise when you are setting up your business presence in India. So now, having decided the form of entity, place where to invest, how do you fund it, then there are certain operational key decisions you will have to do it on. How do you enter into your contracts? And typically you would, in a power company, you would do an EPC contract structuring, whether it's a single contract, whether you want to do a separate contract, whether you're bidding through a consortiums. And there are, in India, there has been a host of issues around it and litigation around it. So that needs to be taken care of. And of course, once you've decided to set up in India, sometimes you set up, hire local people to do the execution. Sometimes you send expatriates or send people from overseas to execute. Then you need to take into account a tax terminology called as something called as permanent establishment, which also needs to be taken into account. Then there are certain sector issues on how do you take into account the taxability of carbon credits, renewable purchase obligations, how do you ensure that your supply chain is optimum, because in India there are, apart from income tax, there is goods and service tax, and you just need to optimize your tax as well. And lastly, when you are entering into India, India is a very, very compliance driven country. So India has a host of laws and huge amount of compliances to be done. Hence, you need to take into account various obligations under various laws, which are income tax, goods and service tax, also under exchange control regulations. You know, if the same are not complied with, there are unnecessary penalties and in some cases even prosecution. So that needs to be taken care of. Your experience about India and could be as good or as bad as how you are able to manage compliances in India. If you have been able to manage your compliances in India in a perfect manner, you will have a very good experience and it would give you very good returns from India. But for whatever reason, if you ignore the compliance portion, then your experience of about India may not be very good. So, and the manner in which government is behaving, they are driving this compliance culture in India. So these are the points which an investor typically would want to take into account. Now moving to the next slide, that okay, having invested into India, is that how do I want to, what are some of the operational issues, and then how do I take back the money out of India if at any point of time? See, in India, while the tax rate is comparatively lower now, India has come out with various schemes very recently, last year, December, where you have practically 2 or 3 different tax rates which could be applicable depending on what incentives you are claiming or not. It could range from 34% and it could go down even to 25%, depending on what exemptions or deductions you're claiming or not. If you're planning to set up a manufacturing unit new, the tax rate can go down as low as 17% also. But you know, so you need to be very aware of fact as to which regime you want to go for. At the same time, there are certain incentives which are granted, that if you are setting up some sort of presence in India and if you are providing certain employment to the Indian employees, then there are certain benefits or incentives which are available, like employment generation, where basically you spend 100, you get 190 as a deduction over a period of 3 years, so almost like a 22% saving on a year-on-year basis. But you need to satisfy certain conditions. At the same time, there are certain manufacturing incentives and also indirect tax incentives that, you know, if you're setting up something, you get a cashback or duty drawback and various other incentives for which you need to satisfy the conditions under the scheme and then get yourself registered under the scheme and claim the benefit. Okay. Once you have set up the business, then the question arises that, okay, you will be doing your business in a normal thing. As I said, India is a compliance driven country. So any income which you will receive from your customer, that could possibly be subject to certain taxes. If yes, then there are ways in which, you know, if your profitability is lower than the tax which is being withheld, you can try and reduce your taxes as well by applying for certain taxes. And you can also go ahead and claim certain deductions, which you know could give you a benefit of 1 to 2% directly adding to your bottom line. And next, we also see the next point which I wanted to convey is that we see a lot of requests coming from the foreign investors that they want certainty in India. And India being a long litigation country where there's litigation tends to be 10 to 15 years, how do I achieve certainty in India? And there are mechanisms which are available. So if you want a transfer pricing certainty, there is an advanced pricing mechanism which is available. If you want certainty on tax withholding or your tax rate on international tax, or for PE matters, you have an advanced ruling which is in place. And if there are complex issues, even a mutual agreement procedure is there. So if we see many companies also exploring these routes, if they want certainty, it takes its own sweet time to get certainty, but I think so it's worth it. If you get certainty in India, nothing like it. The next point is that, of course, as I said, there are various exchange control regulations which you need to take extremely care of, because that could act as a deal breaker, and which you don't want when you're doing your business in India. So now, having understood these are the operational issues, you also see that, okay, how do I take back my money out of India, say after 1 year or 2 years, or as and when I want? Then there are various mechanisms. As I said, your funding is one of the most important factor when you decide your repatriation. So if you are funded by way of equity, the only way you can get back your money is by way of dividend or capital reduction. If you have invested by way of loan, then there is interest. And then there are various repatriation mechanisms depending on the services rendered by foreign companies, such as royalties, corporate headquarters charges, management charges, etc. And also in dividend, coming to the next point, which is dividend, India has got a new regime from 1st April 2020, by which now the rate of dividend withholding is reduced to almost 10% for the UK investors because of the tax treaties. And if you have invested in India since quite some long time, and historically prior to 1st April 2020, your rate was 20%. There are ways in means by which you can also try to recover the 10% which you have paid in the past. But that's one point which I would just like to leave it to you. If need further questions, we can of course answer that. And the last thing which I would like to address is on exit. There are various ways in which you can exit. One is that, okay, directly you sell the shares of the Indian company, then you are subject to capital gains tax in India. The other way in which is that today we have seen many of the companies, and this is typically referring to the case, Vodafone case, which was of course a UK case, investing into India. There, say let's assume a UK company selling the shares of another UK company, which ultimately holds the shares of an Indian company. You may prima facie believe that actually we are just selling the shares of a UK company. Why should India even try to tax it? But no, India will also look at it as to the shares of this company which are being sold. How are they deriving their value from? If that another UK company is having full value from Indian company, then India will also tax it. Okay, and that in India it is called as indirect transfer regulation. Post Vodafone, India has brought in this case. Although Vodafone has won the case, but that's also on an investment arbitration prior to 2012. Going forward, if you are planning to sell, this provision certainly will be attracted. So please plan your affairs or investments appropriately, because that will also impact your exit. So these were the key points which I wanted to discuss with you, and would be happy to answer any further questions as may arise. I think so. Over to you, Alex. Thank you, Emma.
Thanks, Debasish and Jimit, for an excellent introduction into the opportunities and what international companies can and are allowed to do in India. So just before I hand it over to Alex, anyone having any questions, please feel free to enter them in the chat box that you have, and we'll pick it up at the end of all the presentations. So yeah, our next speaker today is Alex. Alex Marshall is the Group Marketing and Compliance Director at Clarke Energy, which is a UK company specializing in distributed power generation systems and are operating globally. Clarke Energy is one of our key members in, as in UKIBC members in the energy sector. And they started in India with the acquisition of Cogen India in 2003. And they have since delivered close to 500 megawatts of high efficiency and renewable energy projects in India. Alex is a council member of the World Biogas Association and will be a founder of the Cogen World Coalition. Over to you, Alex.
Thank you for that introduction, Prasenjit. If I can have the ability to share screen. Can you just confirm you're seeing that screen?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. So since that last slide was done, I've had a slight change of position. I now also have business development as my responsibilities for Clarke Energy, but thank you for the introduction. I'll give you a quick whistle-stop tour of what we do. I'm going to run quite quickly through this, as there's a few slides. Globally, we operate in 27 countries. Our key business has been the gas engine business, both Yambacher and Walkinshaw engines. We also supply biogas upgrading units. We've got 7.4 gigawatts of power globally, half a gigawatt of which is in India. We seek to lower costs, carbon emissions. We're a turnkey EPC contractor, and our ethos is in maintenance and ensuring equipment runs and happy customers. So globally, this is our spread. Our Indian operations are one of our key global hubs for the business. We supply on the left-hand side NEO gas engines. On the biogas side of things, which is the renewable offering, they operate up to 3.3 megawatts. Natural gas, they go up to 10 megawatts. And also membrane and selective solvent biogas upgrading facilities. As a business, we can supply just a single product. We can integrate that product with a customer's facility with the electricity and heat recovery. We can deliver a turnkey power plant, and the business is evolving into hybrids. So with the reduction in price of batteries, solar, we find that combining different technologies is now a very good solution for various different applications. We, as a business, were established in the UK in 1989. Cogen India, the company we acquired in 2003, was established in 97. So as Clarke Energy, we've been in India for over 16 years. We also acquired Orient Energy in Bangladesh, and our Indian operations played a key role in integrating those operations for us. Headquarters are in Pune in Maharashtra. We also have significant operations in Gujarat, in Haryana, and also in Kolkata, which supports the compression business. So where do we fit as far as the renewable energy efficiency side of things? So we have a range of different applications for gas engines. So on the right-hand side is biogas. And interestingly, India has both led the way in certain biogas fields and also lags behind in others. So I'll just give some examples of where that's the case. We also supply engines that can operate on hydrogen. This is becoming more and more important, and since this graph was originally done, hydrogen is becoming higher up the international list. And my previous speaker, Debasish, spoke about the need for flexible generation. Peaking power stations, flexible generation to support intermittent renewables is a growing sector of the business. So you need to be able to balance the intermittent nature of wind and solar with power when people need it. So over time, we've installed numerous engines in India. These are some examples. So going back to the earliest projects back in 1997, so really setting the lead internationally on biogas on the distillery sector because of some of the legislation that was brought out. This is Canoria Chemicals, using engines coming off the effluents from the distillery process, treating the waste and preventing its emission into the waterways. Excuse the pronunciation, Kadungayor sewage treatment plant in Chennai. This is a project that's been operating since 2006. We recently passed 100,000 hours of operation. So this takes the effluent from human waste and converts that into renewable energy and treats the waste in parallel, so waste treatment as well. A more recent project with MBO, pharmaceuticals manufacturer, manufacturing bulk drugs. So the waste products there are being treated. An engine converts it to electricity, heat and cooling. That's trigeneration, electricity, heat and cooling. Now, putting into context an opportunity for UK style installations that could have value in India. This is a flexible generation unit with the huge numbers of wind turbines coming on in the UK. we are having similar to India, a massive need for grid balancing. So we have a number of installations. This is just one example of one particular customer that are able to switch on at very short notice and balance the grid. At the moment, these are natural gas fueled, as the grid is natural gas, but as the grid moves to biomethane and also hydrogen, these can provide a renewable energy form of grid balancing. So we also commissioned recently a study with UKIBC on expanding waste management in India. And whilst there are some great opportunities and India's led the way in certain areas there are some big challenges, and most notably of which on solid municipal waste treatment. So we've got the combined challenges of rapid urbanization, industrialization. The existing systems are unable to cope. There's a negative impact on the environment, and a significant amount of the population live on a small amount of money a day. So you need to be able to pay for waste treatment. And how is that done? There's challenges with penalties, enforcement of penalties at urban local body level. Power from waste facilities are expensive compared to wind and solar power plants. There's duty of a generator to source segregate, but we're not seeing source segregation of waste to make clean waste. We've got problems with fees, pollution thresholds, and waste planning. On the financial challenges, the ability of the population to pay for high tipping fees to facilitate that treatment of waste, cost of land, reliance of government subsidies, financial challenges, the ability of those financial challenges to bring in private sector participation, and the government current focus on wind and solar for renewable energy, and not necessarily supporting the balance of that for waste treatment. So we have a series of recommendations in this report, including at central government level, at state level, and also at urban body level. I won't go into those at too much detail now, but if you would like to read the white paper or speak to us on all the other things, that's available for download on the UKIBC website. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Alex. Thanks a lot. I'm sure there will be questions, and we'll come back to you in the discussion later. Can I now introduce you to Jennifer Fagan? She's the first Secretary Trade and Investment at the British High Commission in New Delhi. She leads on the energy and clean growth initiatives of the UK government, supporting UK businesses looking to invest in India, and also leads on the COP26 corporate engagement. So over to you, Jennifer.
Thanks so much. So yeah, as you said, I'm Jen Fagan. I'm First Secretary Trade and Investment, and I'm based here in New Delhi. And I lead on our energy work and COP26. So what that means in reality is my team provides on-the-ground support to companies from the UK looking to enter the energy market in India, either through exporting to India or investing in India. And we focus solely on renewable energy. So this is a really interesting panel for me to be on, and I want to thank UKIBC for inviting me to talk about the areas where I see potential for UK companies to enter the market, and to share some of the success stories we've seen over the last 12 months too. So even under the most unprecedented 12 months that the world has witnessed, climate has remained a priority for governments across the world. Governments taking action to get back on track to meet the Paris commitments. So with the UK reprioritising climate and China making net zero by 2050 commitments, the outlook is looking brighter than it did just a few months ago. And for the UK government, climate change and reducing emissions is one of the top priorities. We were the first country to commit in law to net zero, and the Prime Minister has recently unveiled his 10-point plan for a green industrial revolution. These 10 points don't just relate to the UK and UK priorities. It is equally applicable to India, so they're kind of key priorities across the world. While we all know that reducing emissions is a good thing for our planet, it is also great news for businesses around the world. So one measure of the opportunity is that 83% of the $13.3 trillion of global investment in electricity systems by 2050 could be in the zero carbon technologies. few countries have been growing their renewable energy sector as fast and determinedly as India has. So in 2019, India became the most attractive emerging market for clean energy investment in the world. And demand for energy in India is the fastest growing, with government of India having quite a tricky balance to achieve and ensuring energy supply to the population is stable and strong, and doing so in a clean, quick and efficient way. Can we go on to the next slide, please? So the opportunity is clearly huge, but specifically I wanted to focus on 3 areas where I think there is possibility for UK firms to become more involved in the Indian market. So firstly, offshore wind. I don't need to tell you that the UK is a world leader in offshore wind, and the opportunity in India is equally as impressive. So with a target of 30 gigawatt installed capacity by 2030, the market is set to be huge. And while there is not currently any capacity installed, the market is preparing to move. So the UK's Offshore Renewable Energy Capital is supporting the National Institute for Wind Energy to develop their testing sites in Tamil Nadu, which is crucial for kicking the rollout. So this sector is in the stage of kind of watch this space. Tenders will be coming out soon, and when they do, they'll be coming thick and fast for the first installations. And the UK businesses are perfectly placed to take a large share of this market. So understanding the market now, understanding if companies want to get involved now in anticipation of this is really key. Secondly, I wanted to talk about smart grids and electrical networks. So they are needed, of course, to underpin India's renewable energy boom, as increasing the renewable energy share in the increased renewable energy share in the electricity mix is adding to the complexity of grid management. So India is to invest £34.2 billion in smart grid infrastructure by 2030, with reliable 24/7 power supply a key priority for the government of India. This market is alive and booming, and there are opportunities now to work with cities and electricity distributors. So a really exciting area to get involved in. And lastly, I wanted to talk a little bit about energy storage. So again, the large increase in renewables will require energy storage solutions. India's market for EV batteries alone could be worth as much as $300 billion from 2017 to 2030, with over a third of global EV battery demand being represented by India if the country meets its EV strategy goals. So a huge, huge opportunity, and again, a market which is already alive and kicking and ready for firms to enter. There are, of course, lots of others, and we've heard about some of those today, so such as waste energy, hydrogen, and then onshore wind, offshore wind, and many others. But they were 3 that I wanted to highlight that we are quite focused on. So if we could go to the next slide, please. So I just wanted to give a few examples of firms that are already succeeding in this space that we've been working with over the last 12 months. So Cyan Canode have been providing hybrid M2M data communication for utility smart city solutions to customers across India. KIC have been providing smart grid testing equipment to Tata Power and the state of Maharashtra and others. Smart Grid Solution have been providing active network management technology in Tamil Nadu, and Vidrona have been providing predictive analytics for asset management, working with leading utilities such as Tata Power and BRPL. They are just a few of the examples, and you've heard some more today as well of UK businesses that are succeeding in India. So the opportunity here in India is absolutely huge, but it is well known that doing business in India can sometimes be a little bit tricky, and it is true that it does take patience. I'm not here to try and convince you that it's the easiest place ever to set up, but I am here to try and convince you that it is a market worth investing your time and energy in. The opportunity is huge. UK businesses are already doing really well here, as you've heard firsthand today. And we at the Department for International Trade are here to assist you. So whether that be specific information about your subsector, introducing you to key contacts and helping set up partnerships, or continuing support once a company is established in India, so looking at barriers that they're facing and lobbying the government directly to help you overcome them. That's the kind of work that we do, and we have done with many companies across sectors, but also in energy particularly. Can we go to the next slide? So our contact details on the screen, and hopefully these slides can be shared with you. So we would welcome a chat with anyone interested in India, whatever stage you're at, to discuss how we can support you make the most of this really incredible market opportunity. So thanks, that's it from me.
Thanks, Jennifer. It's for the insightful presentation and looking at what the UK companies are doing, and especially from the business perspective. But I also wanted to kind of, in terms of our discussion going forward, wanted to kind of bring up the government engagement in this area, as in. The UK is, as you mentioned, and everyone knows, is already working closely with India, and as a quote-unquote joint force for good on climate change. So my question to you is, given the upcoming COP26 meeting in Glasgow later this year, and the potential meetings of our two PMs planned this year and other senior level ministerial engagement, what are the key government and business engagements that are being planned?
Yeah, absolutely. So you're right to say that we're already working together really closely on climate issues, be that from kind of ocean biodiversity, nature type stuff, all the way into encouraging corporate commitments from some of the biggest firms operating in India and the UK. So India is on track to meet its nationally determined contribution, but we are hoping to increase ambition. So we hope that India will come with a stronger ambition of a nationally determined contribution, and we're lobbying really hard to get that to be the case. And there's a lot of engagement in the run up to COP26, kind of too much to mention in one go, but I'll give you some highlights. So as you said, the Prime Minister was due actually to be out yesterday and today in India, but given events have had to postpone, but he is planning to come out before June. And in June, we also, where climate will be one of the top two priorities that he was focusing on for his visit, and that included, for example, going down to Tamil Nadu to look at the offshore wind testing facilities that we are working on together in India there. The G7 is also being hosted in the UK this year, and with India as a guest country, so that's happening in Cornwall in June. So another opportunity for us to continue to lobby the Indian government and think about how we can work together, because India has done incredible things and is really forging the way in terms of impressive renewable commitments. So figuring out how we can work together and share technology to enable both countries to increase their commitments. Green finance engagement is a really strong point in this. So one of the biggest blockers to reducing emissions is finance to do so, and it's a key pillar of the COP26. So we have various things like economic financial dialogues, sustainable finance working groups, etc. And just one example of where kind of money is being put on the table in India. BP and the UK government have invested 70 million and 150 million pounds respectively into the Green Growth Equity Fund in India. So I think that commitment shows how seriously we take climate issues in India. And to meet India's NDCs, it's going to need tech from abroad and best practice, and the UK is excellently placed to do that. So taking offshore wind as an example, but this is replicated across the sectors. We're really good at it. We have a competitive advantage. We have experience in rolling this out earlier. So that kind of joint working is going to be key, and it's good for business, it's good for British business, but it's also key into ensuring that countries around the world can meet their commitments. So that UK tech is really important. And lastly, we're working on with businesses in India, so not just with the government, but with businesses to encourage them to make commitments. And again, India is leading the way. Companies understand the need to make commitments to reduce emissions. And that means that it isn't just big infrastructure projects that are creating demand for renewable energy. It crosses all sectors. Hospitals, railways, schools, airports are all looking for renewable energy solutions, and that can include storage, it can include wind, solar, it can include waste to energy, it includes a lot. So there are lots of big opportunities, but also because businesses are making these commitments, there are the smaller opportunities too. I'll leave it there.
Thank you, Jennifer. If I can kind of turn to Deloitte and to Clarke Energy in terms of the lead up to COP26, what are you seeing in terms of from the perspective of your businesses, as well as what are you seeing around you?
Well, from my perspective, Clarke Energy, I think it's hard to understate just how much of a transformation is coming in the energy sector. Those people that are still tunnel visioned into the old way of doing things, I think have got some challenges coming in the future. You've got the UK committing to net zero by 2050. You've got the European Union following after that. You've got the US with Biden now recommitting to the country to the climate change agreements. The amount of change right now is immense. I think it's great that the COP26 is in the UK, and we're seeking to get involved in any way we can. So it's a huge time of change. We're seeing the hydrogen. We've touched on that a few times here, but the potential of that to replace natural gas. Some huge opportunities. At the moment, it's expensive to generate, whether that's from blue hydrogen, from natural gas, or whether it's from green hydrogen. So there's opportunities for companies that can move quickly. And the COP26 is a great platform for that.
I agree with Alex. I think one of the things that we are excited about, and the possibilities are enormous. I think by 2030, what we are expecting is that all kinds of all four forms of transportation, electric vehicle, the current IC engines, CNG, LNG, and finally hydrogen, all of them will be in use. And the second aspect of investment in hydrogen, particularly green hydrogen, is that, as Alex mentioned, that most of our refineries were for hydrogen, they were running on naphtha, and they've now shifted to natural gas. But unlike Europe, which takes advantage of cheaper natural gas, for us, gas comes at a very high cost. It's around $8 to $10. So for us, green hydrogen will get parity pretty soon. And also, earlier, I think Jennifer and Alex both were mentioning the entire grid balancing, and in the past also, in the previous form, DFID and other UK funding agencies have helped the Indian power sector, and currently also FCDO is trying to see how this transition is smooth, and what kind of technical assistance can be provided. The great thing about this is that if India gets the right technology and the right financing, India can actually afford not to add another megawatt of thermal coal energy going forward, and that would really help the world to fight this climate crisis. So it's important that and India is fully committed, and I think, yes, as Alex mentioned, with the US coming back to the Paris Agreement, I think there is a great hope leading to COP26, how all of us can come together, exchange technology, access finances, and make the world a better place. Prasenjit, you are on mute right now. Yeah.
Sorry. Thank you. Thank you, Debasish. Just to add on to that, in terms of obviously with the government of India's Atmanirbhar Bharat, self-reliant India kind of a campaign which they are running, as in obviously access to technology, access to manufacturing, access to finance, all plays a role in terms of how they achieve that, and within that sustainable growth, so that kind of they meet the Paris Accord and meet what the climate the carbon footprint declarations have been. So in that, as in, where do you think and how do you think the UK actually fits in and what are the key areas that we should be focusing on?
So, if I may start, I think India has its ambition, given that it's going to be a 450 gigawatt cumulative market by 2030. We definitely need manufacturing capacity in the solar sector and also battery storage. So, if you can see that in last 1 year, government has come out with production linked incentive. They're called the PLI schemes, and both these things are pretty much high in their agenda in terms of attracting large manufacturing in the solar sector and also in the battery storage segment. But other than that, in the entire value chain, there will be a lot of opportunities to invest in manufacturing facilities and equipment in several of the things like biofuel. India has a very aggressive target on bio CNG to have massive 20% blending in that area. So that's also another area where UK India can participate and help each other. Also, waste to energy, as Alex was mentioning, many of the projects are successfully running, and that's also something which can be taken forward. So obviously, the areas of opportunities and the possible investment avenues are quite a few, and we have a shared history and culture which we understand each other. So I don't think that's difficult. So bringing together the opportunity and the investors will be probably the next logical thing. So I'm quite hopeful.
Absolutely, here the same here. So thank you, Debasish. In terms of Alex, Debasish touched upon the waste to energy things, and obviously in your presentation you have covered the various areas that we are looking at. Is there any specific area which you think Clarke Energy would be focusing over the next few years, and what would your key ask be from the UK, the Indian government, especially in terms of obviously we know that segregation of waste is not there, and number of issues which need to be put in place first. But in terms of moving things forward, what would your key asks be?
Well, I think there's there are always a series of challenges with developing waste management projects, and we've highlighted a number of those recommendations in this report. Waste treatment is expensive, and it normally gets left on the back burner compared to development. And the world is, we can't afford to pollute in one part of the world and not do it in others. We all breathe the same air and we all live on the same planet. So I think importance of the focus of cleanup of nature, whether that is the urban environment or whether that's the rivers, the deployment of tried and tested technology to do that, so it's well established. As a business, we supply gas engines for biogas. We are now able to supply biogas upgrading units. We seek to develop our skills. Our business is engineering, installation, maintenance. We seek to create value by bringing installations together and to deploying by giving added value. Because I think it's fair to say there's a lot of challenges in the renewable sector from a profitability perspective. Battery and solar projects, they're doing great, but there's not a huge amount of margin in those jobs. So you need to still create value to enable you to create a quality installation, and not just try and go for the lowest common denominator. So there's a series of challenges that need to be addressed to make these things bankable.
Absolutely, and in that, as in obviously following on from our report, we look forward to working with you, with both the UK government, Indian government, state governments to look at getting those things sorted. Both you and Debasish touched upon solar, and obviously with the recent ban of imports, especially Chinese solar panels into India. Where does it take India? Does India have the internal capacity to meet the demands? Would the projects still remain as cost competitive as we were seeing, or will there be changes that you see? If I can pose it to Debasish first, and then to others as well.
Prasenjit, there is no ban as such. There is a duty which is declared, and probably the union budget, which is going to be presented by the finance minister on 1st of February. The more clarity is expected on that. Obviously, if you ban, India doesn't have the manufacturing facility to facilitate the 10 gigawatt of solar that's getting added in the utility segment every year. And also, it has to be a well thought out thing, because in the entire solar value chain, starting from polysilicon to ingot to wafers to making the panels, it depends where India wants to play, because India still doesn't probably have the ability to play end to end in the value chain. So there is a lot to debate and ponder, and whether India can take advantage of the entire world is taking advantage of the lower panel prices. But having its own ambition in terms of being a manufacturing base, it has its own challenges also. So government must be thinking holistically and balancing the interest of local manufacturing. Yet if we do something, create barriers immediately, that will definitely impact the renewable program. So I'm expecting more clarity in the coming budget on this one, Prasenjit. Yeah.
And anyone else has any comments on that, or?
I'll just come in quickly. So you touched on Make in India there, and I think that's something that we're getting a lot of questions on from UK companies about what that means to them. And I think what it means actually is that it's still open. We can still export to India. That's not a problem. But I think what it does mean is that investment from UK companies and setting up a base and having a partner here is becoming increasingly important. So having some sort of base here in India and connection means that it will make doing business here easier. And that's not to say it's not possible without that, but that is probably becoming more important. But again, if you or any businesses have questions about how that would affect them and their business plans, then please do get in touch and we can talk through that.
Yeah, we have a lot of questions which are coming in, but we might run out of time, but we can answer those questions going forward, definitely. But there's one question which has come in from another one, which is coming from Vidrona, a company, Jennifer, you mentioned in your presentation. They have said that the drive for net zero carbon ambition goal is there. So there is significant rise in renewables now in India and elsewhere. However, installing generation capacity does not guarantee to achieve the goal. The need is to ensure by using or having the right kind of technologies, the right kind of predictive models, and so that the government policymakers and utilities need to put in place so that these capacities which are installed then actually deliver what they have been installed for. So any thoughts on that?
Just again, quickly from me, I think that's absolutely right. We have experience in the UK of making sure that the capacity that installed is being as efficient as possible and is being distributed across the country. And in India, that is a bigger challenge than it is in the UK, but the technology is there. So that for me is one of the biggest opportunities, and it's where Vidrona has seen success so far in India and hopefully much more to come. But I think that kind of technology that allows the capacity to be used in the most efficient way is absolutely key for India to meet their targets. The capacity is not enough. You're right.
Yeah, power generation needs to be installed close to where it's going to be used. It needs to be usable when people need the power, and surplus capacity ideally could be converted into something like hydrogen and used for power generation when is required. So there's a series of things that need to be addressed: grid connections, quality of installation, quality of build, maintenance of the installations, And all these things add to a sustainable grid.
Yeah, thank you. Debasish, anything from your side?
No, absolutely. So I think this is a subject where, as I mentioned, both there are bilateral and multilateral funding agencies. Their role will be very important. Already there was a US aid program called RISE, which was on for integrating the 175 gigawatt of renewable into the grid. UK FCDO has also declared 2 programs. One is on renewable side and another one on energy efficiency side. And these are all the questions which are being raised there, and solutions which are being debated, system modeling, what suits well for the system, what works well. All those things are being addressed in that, and that's where, as I mentioned, this kind of cooperation and technical assistance would go a long way in developing that relationship.
Thank you. There are a lot more questions, but I think we'll just go with one last question before we end. So this is a question which we have got from another of UKIBC's members, Energy Pro, and it is about, the question is, we always hear a lot about renewable energy, but given the scale of the opportunity and Indian ambitions in improving energy efficiency, Debasish, you mentioned obviously the goal that India has put forward in reduction of 30 to 35% by 2030 on compared to 2005 levels. And given UK's expertise in this area, shouldn't energy efficiency be always a first priority? I think that's a low-hanging fruit. What do you think, as in the panel, Jennifer, Debasish, Alex?
The World Bank as well has put some significant funds into India to help to improve energy efficiency, and I completely agree. It's the easiest and lowest hanging fruit to address from a initial perspective.
Yeah, so Prasenjit, I think there has been already a lot of action which is happening. It's not that it's ignored, unlike renewable. I don't think there is it's exclusive. You do one and you don't do the other. As I was mentioning, this 350 million LED bulb itself had an impact of almost 25 gigawatt of saved generating capacity into the grid. Also, the perform, achieve, trade, and equipment leveling, all those things have been tried out in the past, and I agree that a lot more can be done. So obviously, to reduce carbon intensity of the economy, we need to be most efficient so that we don't waste energy to produce the same amount of output. So there is a great deal of work yet to be done, but I think it's absolutely there on top of the mind of all policymakers, regulators, and the utilities here in India also.
Absolutely, I agree, and I think this work is happening, and it is a priority. So, for example, in the smart cities that are popping up over India, all of that work is looking at energy efficiency and improving the way that things are run. So, I think it is a priority that we didn't necessarily touch on today, but you're right, it's a low-hanging fruit, and we should take advantage of it.
Thank you, everyone. I think we have actually overshot our time. So I think it has been a fantastic discussion, and I guess we'll have more of this and continue building on this going forward. But let me start by thanking all the presenters for your time today and for sharing your valuable thoughts and experience with us. I would also like to thank all of you who have participated in today's event, have asked lots of questions which we couldn't take up in this session, but I'm sure we will respond to those in slower time. And I hope you all found it informative and useful. This year, as has been mentioned, will be crucial in how UK-India partnership on climate action can deliver substantial progress towards reducing emissions and helping build sustainability and resilience in our two countries, as well as help take that learning globally. With this as a backdrop, my colleagues and I at the UKIBC are looking at working closely with our members, clients, contacts, and obviously with both our governments to demonstrate the expertise and advocate good practices, showcase further what the UK-India collaboration can achieve in the energy transition and climate economy space. We would like this group not only to influence the bilateral thinking ahead of COP26, but also focus on mutual win-wins, both in terms of policy and commercial levels going forward. If any of you on this call would like to know more or would like to participate, please do get in touch with me. And I would like to thank all of you once again and say bye for now. But I'm sure we will have another session because lots more things remained and lots more questions have come in. So we will definitely set up another of these events going forward. Thank you and bye for now.
Thank you.
Thank you.